This is a story about a world obsessed with stuff. It's a story about a system in crisis. We're trashing the planet, we're trashing each other, and we're not even having fun. The good thing is that when we start to understand the system, we start to see lots of places to step in and turn these problems into solutions. Can I tell you, I love my Pantene Pro V. Of the dozen or so personal care products that I use every day, it's the one I can't live without. Says it gives my dull hair the ultimate cool shine. How does it do that? I was wondering that while I was lathering it into my hair one day, so I read the ingredients right here. Sodium lauryl sulfate, tetrasodium EDTA, methyl isothiazolinone. What is this stuff? I took this list to some scientists who know how to read it. Turns out my Pantene contains a chemical linked to cancer. And lots of other products in my bathroom, from sunscreen to lipstick and even baby shampoo, also contain chemicals linked to cancer or other problems like learning disabilities, asthma, and even damaged sperm. Like most parents, I try to keep my family safe. But now I find out my bathroom is a minefield of toxins? What are we supposed to do? To find out the answers, we have to go back to one of the key features of our materials economy: toxics in, toxics out. If, at the factory, you pour toxic chemicals into a product, like baby shampoo, you're going to wind up with toxic baby shampoo. And toxics in workers, communities, and, babies. So let's take a closer look at this toxic outrage where it seeps into our lives every day, in the bathroom. The average woman in the U.S. uses about 12 personal care products daily. The average man about 6. Each product containing a dozen or more chemicals. Less than 20% of chemicals in cosmetics have been assessed for safety by the industry's safety panel. So we just don't know what they do to us when we use them. Would you fly on an airline that only inspects 20% of its planes? Of course, not all of these chemicals are dangerous, but we know that many are. Some are carcinogens. That means that they can cause cancer. Others are neurotoxins and reproductive toxins, proven to mess up brain development and reproduction in animals. Wait a minute, we're animals too. It's like a giant experiment. We're using all these mystery chemicals and just waiting to see what happens. One thing we do know is that they're getting inside us. I had my body's toxicity levels tested, and I'm loaded with things like mercury, flame retardants, triclosan, and lead. We all are. Even babies are being born pre-polluted. Now, I know we can't live in a lead-free world, but do we have to put lead in our lipstick? I don't know. Maybe it's my fault. Maybe I just bought the wrong thing. At the store, the choices seem endless. I can get lipstick in 49 shades, or shampoo for hair that's too dry, oily, fine, limp, or frizzy. But what about the choices that really matter? Like the choice to buy products that are safe? It turns out the important decisions don't happen when I choose to take a product off the shelf. They happen when companies and governments decide what products should go on the shelves. So who are these companies? This is Procter & Gamble. They're the ones offering me Herbal Essences, the #2 shampoo in the country. It contains toxic petrochemicals made from oil. Since when is oil an herb? On cosmetics labels, words like herbal, natural, even organic have no legal definition. That means that anybody can put anything in a bottle and call it natural, and they do. I mean, can you imagine a top seller called Petro Essences? Gross. What's even nastier are hair relaxers marketed to 5-year-olds and skin whitening creams. These are super toxic, both in their ingredients and in the message they send about what beauty is. Ooh, here's Estee Lauder offering me a chance to help find a cure for breast cancer. That's nice. But wait, they're also using chemicals linked to cancer. Don't you think the best way for Estee Lauder to fight cancer is to stop using those chemicals in the first place? So really, I get to choose between meaningless claims on a bottle. But these guys get the real choice about what goes into those bottles. And that happens back here, at the factories where they're formulated. Why do the makers of these products use all these toxics? Are they trying to poison us? No, they're just working from a 1950s mindset when people were totally swept up in better living through chemistry. In all that excitement, they forgot to worry about human health impacts. That was years ago, and they are still using these same old toxic chemicals. Today, big cosmetics companies say the doses of poison in their products are small enough to be harmless. Yeah, maybe if you use them once a year. I guess they never get out and see that their products are being used and combined with other products every day. A little toxic dose under your arms, a little more on your hair, on your lips, and workers in nail and hair salons get dosed all day long. So the industry is used to doing things this way, and they can, because even now that scientists have linked the chemicals they're using to all sorts of problems, there are no laws to get rid of them. You're thinking, really? Come on, nobody's making sure that the stuff we smear all over our bodies is safe? Nope. The FDA doesn't even assess the safety of personal care products or their ingredients. Since 1938, they've banned just 8 out of over 12,000 ingredients used in cosmetics. They don't even require that all of the ingredients be listed on the label. Now, this is an example where we can all agree a little more government action would be helpful. This lack of regulation leaves a huge hole that the cosmetics industry is all too happy to fill. They set up their own committee to self-police their products, and compliance with their recommendations is voluntary. So the cosmetics industry is making the rules and then deciding whether or not to follow them. So you see, it isn't our fault that these toxic products are in our bathrooms. It's a whole broken system that's ignoring the simple rule: toxics in, toxics out. But we're not helpless. There are resources online that we can use to protect ourselves by identifying the best possible choices in the store. But the real action is with people working to change the system. Because if we really want to solve this problem, we got to start here with these guys. Women, parents, workers, people all over the country are demanding that Congress pass a new law, giving FDA the power to make sure that our personal care products are safe. We need common sense laws based on the precautionary principle. That means that when you're dealing with hazardous chemicals, just err on the side of caution. Let's not debate how much lead should be allowed in lipstick. Just get the toxic chemicals out of our products. Smarter laws would force companies to get past that old 50s mindset and figure out how to get us all clean and shiny without toxic chemicals. Can they? Totally. Many responsible cosmetics companies are already putting safer products on the market. Green chemists are developing substances that are designed to be safe and non-toxic in the first place. European governments have required the removal of many toxic chemicals, and companies have figured out how to comply. When cosmetics are reformulated to be safe and labeled honestly, then we can feel comfortable with the choices available at the store. We can choose bouncy hair or full hair, shiny lipstick or matte. We can even choose to feel beautiful without using 20 products. But we'll know that whatever we choose, the most important choice, the choice to be safe and healthy, has already been made.
Going. Welcome everyone. Thanks so much for being here. This is a really exciting moment for Gabe and I and the rest of the team of the Functional Forum. This is the first forum on the road. Obviously doing new and interesting things in new and interesting places brings up new and interesting possibilities. And thank you everyone who's played any part in making this happen, because this is not our usual theatre. You may think the music was a little racy when we come in, but normally people are clapping. It's like Oprah, everyone's going crazy. So we don't expect that from you. It's a first-time audience. You don't know what we can bring, but hopefully by the end of it, you'll know what to do next time. So this is the Functional Forum. We've been doing it in New York for this year, and you know, our purpose and the tagline for this is to accelerate the evolution of medicine. And what we're really passionate about is bringing forward and helping doctors and helping everyone to understand the role that they're going to play in a new, more evolved medical system and make it easy for those people to participate in that way. And so what we do is we bring together clinical information, and there are plenty of doctors doing amazing work in the field of functional integrated medicine, but also we like to talk about the practical implications. How do we actually get more doctors doing this? Because it's not just a matter of clinical information to do it. And the third is the coming technological revolution. It's not long now until everyone's going to be wearing an iWatch and everyone's going to be measuring all of their upstream health. What is the medical system, and how are medical providers like yourselves going to interact with the medical system when everyone's getting that much more upstream information? So just a little bit about the journey so far, and you can follow all of the journey on our YouTube channel, which is where we're coming live today. We've had some amazing speakers in New York. We've had Dr. Mark Hyman, is probably familiar to most of you. That's Andy Heyman up there. He did a great talk called Stress in the Brain. Jeff Glad, he did one on Integrative Medicine 2.0, exactly what we're talking about, this sort of convergence of digital. And Dr. Larry Palevsky, who is the only one out of all of us, he didn't let us video his talk, but I'm going to tell you a little bit later about how you can hear what he has to say, and I think he's a real visionary, and his talk that night was amazing. So we are live from Denver, and I'm just going to shock you all right now if you're ready for this, but I was actually born in Colorado. You wouldn't suspect that, would you? But I was born in Loveland, Colorado, not far from here. So this is what they call a home match in England. This is a home game for me, even though it doesn't sound like that. So I hope you enjoyed the video at the beginning. You know, we shared that because one of the things that we're going to be talking about today is there's a lot of doctors that are doing a lot of great education. But we think with the digital age, there's a lot more efficient ways for us to educate patients. And how much easier is it? I'm sure all of you, to some degree or other, understood that there was a problem with cosmetics in this country. And I'm sure a lot of you have sat in your offices talking one-to-one about people's cosmetics. I think there are a lot more efficient ways for us to distribute information. And so we wanted to play that at the beginning. One, because this is a great tool to be able to, a great resource to be able to curate for your patients. But two, because it's really important that our sponsors and what we're doing is in line with what we're doing. And I just want to give a quick shout out to Linda Lizotte, who has a skincare company called AMG. It's amgnaturally.com. She was the sponsor of this event and unfortunately had an issue with her flights and can't be here. But I know you're watching on the live stream, Linda. So thanks so much for the sponsorship. And I hope that, one of our goals with the Functional Forum is to be, very open about our business model and the way that we do things. And we do work with sponsors, and it's important to us to have sponsors that are in line with the mission of what we're trying to do. And a natural skincare line that doesn't include all of the crap that you just saw there is an important part of all of your patients' health. And we can't just be detoxing if we're retoxing, and so that's an important step there. So another thing that's unique about the Functional Forum is that anyone can participate from home. And here we'll have questions later. We've got an amazing panel later. Dr. Deanna Minich is here, one of my favorite practitioners. We've got Jill Carnahan. Where's Jill? Dr. Jill Carnahan. Obviously Dr. Bob Roundtree and also Dr. Donna Embry in the house. And you can ask them questions by going on Twitter and using the hashtag Functional Forum. And so there's a live participation from people at home. And what we're really trying to do is engage people to want to be part of this education. And so that's a great element. So get your questions ready. We're also going to be bringing in today a little bit of sort of like the best of from our first season, the little bits that we've had. We've had some great moments, and we'd like to deliver some of the, I think what we heard from feedback was some of the most poignant moments of the first series of the Functional Forum. And so, yeah, the event here is on, we're going to be talking, I just want to talk a little bit about some of the upcoming things that are next, because I said this is the last episode of the first season. The second season is going to be very different than what you see here. The first season has been a live show that has a couple of cameras pointing at it. The second season is actually going to be designed for the audience outside of that. So we've got some partners. We're potentially working with a company called Live that is very ahead of the game in terms of creating amazing digital video content. And September 8th through 15th, mark your calendars, the Evolution of Medicine Summit. I mentioned earlier about Dr. Polevsky. We have 43 experts from all different areas of the evolution of medicine. And for the first time ever, we have a specific health professional weekend. So there are 2 days that are just designed for health professionals. We have one clinical day, and we have one non-clinical day. I met with a few health coaches here this morning, just before we started, and one of the things we're going to be talking about is how do we actually get more and more people into this type of care, and working with health coaches, group visits, all of that we're going to be talking about on the summit. And the launch is going to be live at ABC Home and Carpet, which is an amazing venue in New York, and that's on Monday the 8th of September. So that's the first episode of season 2. So tonight's event is on toxicity, and we're all about education at the Functional Forum. And earlier on in at the second Functional Forum we did on Beyond the Germ Theory, I really shared my feelings about what it means to be an effective educator. And I think one of the things that we have to realize is that the most important thing in education is not going to be telling people stuff, because at the moment, there's Wikipedia, there's so many tools online, there's a growing list, there's so many videos and other cool resources. Telling people things is not what's important. What's going to be important in the next generation of education is going to be inspiring people to want to learn. They have to want to learn. If you can inspire someone to want to learn, that's half the battle. More than half the battle. And I can say that the reason why I'm really excited today is because we have someone in the audience to come and speak to you who has played such a big role in my development to being here. So in November 2012, I went to ACAM conference, and Dr. Bob Roundtree was doing a talk on the human microbiome. And given you had 2 hours there, and you're only going to have 24 minutes tonight, so you had a bit more time to inspire the whole audience. But that moment inspired me to want to learn everything I could about the human microbiome. I think it's the most interesting part of medicine. Jill, we may have you talk a little bit about it later, just to set you up for what's going to happen in the panel. But that day, Bob inspired me to want to learn everything about the microbiome, and in 2 hours, he was the genesis of a learning process that is still going on, and was very much at the genesis of the Functional Forum. And so when I was making my wish list of people that I wanted to speak at the Functional Forum, Bob was right at the top. Robin, my lawyer. Robin, hey look, there's seats right down at the front. Robin, come sit at the front. This isn't high school. Even the bad kids sit at the front. So, getting back to the main point. Dr. Bob Roundtree, thank you so much for all the work that you've done throughout your career. It's great to be here in Colorado. And so I'm here to give the keynote presentation. Dr. Bob Roundtree, let's have a round of applause.
Hello, everyone. Good evening. My name is Dr. Doom. being used all over the planet. I'm sure some of you have heard these statistics, but it bears repeating over and over again that since World War II, since the 40s, we've introduced over 85,000 new synthetic chemicals. 85,000. And every single year we introduce another 2,000 chemicals that we put in our creams and our face creams and our soap and our shampoo. We put them in our food. We spray them on our lawns. We put them in our flea collars for our pets. They're everywhere. And about 3,000 of these chemicals are manufactured in huge production volumes. More than 1 million pounds of each one of these chemicals produced in the U.S. every year. And that's really where the big concern is some of these chemicals now that use some form of glyphosate. When you hear the arguments about GMOs, well, are they safe, aren't they safe? The arguments almost never talk about glyphosate. But that's the real elephant in the living room, is glyphosate. Why? Because you know what? It's in us. We all have glyphosate in our bodies. This was a study that was published in 2012. It was done in Berlin, Germany, which is a real agricultural place, I can tell you. And the people that they examined were journalists, lawyers, city workers, people that never went to farms. Guess what? 100% of them had glyphosate, had Roundup in their urine. 100%. Another study was published last year that was done in something like 14 different European countries. What do you think they found? Glyphosate all over Europe. Actually, one of the lowest countries was Switzerland. And I think under that was Bulgaria. So we are all peeing out glyphosate. Now, you know what Monsanto says? That's perfectly fine. It's perfectly fine because glyphosate is not metabolized. It goes through our body unaffected. We simply pee it out, and that's great. Do you think it's great? I don't think it's great. It concerns me that this is in my body. Where is it coming from? It's coming from food. This is the study that was published by Friends of the Earth Europe last year, where they looked at European countries. The worst was Malta, followed by Germany and Great Britain. Poland, 70% of people had glyphosate. Interestingly enough, the Macedonians seem to be off the hook. Why is that? I don't know. This is a quote from one of my all-time heroes, Dr. Philip Landrigan. Dr. Landrigan says, what typically will happen is that smart chemists will develop a new product, see that it's useful, and then put it in consumer goods, and it becomes ubiquitous. It gets disseminated all throughout the marketplace, and then 15 years later, we find out, oh, gee, this is a problem. And guess what? We never tested it in the first place. It was never tested. Let me give you an example. Anybody heard of this chemical? Bisphenol A. Bisphenol A was synthesized in 1891, a long time ago. And then years later, it was taken off the shelf and looked at as a synthetic estrogen. It was a drug candidate. And the only reason it didn't come into widespread use as a prescription drug was because they discovered another drug that had very similar effects, but was a little bit more potent, and that drug was diethylstilbestrol. And we all know the story of what happened with that. It was a total environmental disaster. And diethylstilbestrol was really the first chemical that was discovered to have endocrine disrupting properties. It messed with the fundamental signaling of life. It messed with the endocrine system. And that's what bisphenol A does. That was known from the very beginning. So when DES came into favor, the bisphenol A got put on the shelf until somebody discovered that you can polymerize it. You make a polymer out of it, and it makes this nice hard plastic that supposedly doesn't break down. That's cool, isn't it? Let's put it into water bottles. Let's put it into baby bottles. Made out of something called polycarbonate, which supposedly doesn't leach. And it wasn't until this stuff got widely distributed in the environment, it got put in epoxy resins. It's in dental fillings. And it lines 80% of the canned food in the United States. Even canned foods that are made by companies that sell organic products are lined with bisphenol A. It's also on cash register receipts. Almost all cash register receipts that have that shiny, slippery kind of feeling, It's the bisphenol A coating on it that gives it that feeling. And it's been shown that when you handle those receipts, you absorb it through the skin. Which explains why 90% of people in the U.S. have bisphenol A in their bodies. Is this a concern? Yes, it's an endocrine disruptor. And it's especially concerning for kids, because they're going through all these changes with puberty, right? They're in a window of vulnerability in their life. And here they are eating foods out of cans or polycarbonate bottles or baby bottles that are a source of bisphenol A that has been shown in numerous published studies to be linked to heart disease, diabetes, liver inflammation, obesity, thyroid disorders, cancer, infertility. I had a patient come in yesterday who had Hashimoto's thyroiditis. And, you know, this is a very common thing in this country. We have an epidemic of thyroid disorders. And I just looked at her and I said, why are you here? You know, you've already seen an endocrinologist. You're already taking Synthroid. What's the big deal? I was just trying to challenge her a little bit. And she basically said, I want to know why this happened. And no one has offered that explanation to me. And of course, that launched a long discussion about perchlorate and other endocrine disruptors that we know in the environment can interfere with thyroid function. Why is no one asking this question? Why is no one tracking this? I think because the tendency is to think people like this they're a little bit strange. You know, these chemically sensitive people, they can't even go into a grocery store without having to put on a mask. Well, maybe this woman is smart. Maybe she knows what's going on. You know, when you go into the hardware store and there's that funny kind of pesticide-y smell, do you think that's good to be smelling that on a regular basis? Well, every time you smell something like that, that basically means it's coming into your body. Just because it's going into your olfactory nerve doesn't mean it ends there. It's going into your body and it's contributing to the total toxic load. The total toxic load is the burden of all the toxins that are in our environment and the toxins that we create in our gut on a regular basis. So this is a very, very valuable concept. Every patient I see, I evaluate them in terms of where I think their total toxic load is. A bigger term that's emerged in the literature is the exposome. The exposome is everything we're exposed to: radiation, stress, lifestyle, cigarette smoking, infections, drugs, diet, pollution. All of these things add up. Not only do they contribute to the toxins coming into our body, but they also affect how we process these toxins. I just read an amazing study recently that was saying that it turns out vitamin D has a profound influence on the enzymes that break down toxins in our body. For those of you who want the detail, it's CYP3A4. Vitamin D induces that enzyme. And so when people have more vitamin D in their system, the enzyme is activated. And that actually can change blood levels of drugs and toxins. So it gives you an idea of how things in your environment can have a very profound influence. This was a study that was done at the Mount Sinai School of Medicine, where Dr. Philip Landrigan practices. And it was entitled Body Burden, the Pollution of People. I believe it's on the Environmental Working Group website if you want to download that. And what did they do? They looked at 9 different people, 9 volunteers, and they found 167 different chemical pollutants, an average of 53 carcinogens in each person. So we all have this. We're all carrying this total body burden, this total toxic load. Well, so what's the big deal? I first showed this at a seminar by Robert Crayon. Many of you remember Robert, our beloved nutritionist. And years later, he would come up to me and say, Bob, I can't get that freaky frog out of my mind. You know, because what does this say? This is endocrine disruption. This is what happens when you disrupt the signaling of life, is you start creating strange creatures. What has happened to the frogs? I grew up in South Alabama, and it used to be covered with frogs every spring. Sometimes you couldn't avoid stepping on them. Well, this is what Rachel Carson was talking about. The spring is becoming silent because the number of animals is dropping. What are disorders that are linked to total body burden? What happens when you disrupt these endocrine signals? Well, the obvious things are chronic fatigue, fibromyalgia, chemical sensitivity. But what about allergies? Allergies have been linked to phthalates in the environment. Asthma linked to phthalates. Atherosclerosis linked to heavy metals. Cancer, neurodegenerative disorders like Parkinson's disease. Psychiatric disorders. What are mood disorders? Is it a deficiency of a neurotransmitter, which is what the drug companies would have us believe? Or is it a problem with the mitochondria that generate the energy to make the neurons work better? If you damage the mitochondria in your neurons, then what happens? Of course you're not going to make enough neurotransmitters. So here's a way, as I said, this talk is mostly about how do you frame this discussion so that when you're talking to people who are saying, well, if we're just swimming in all these toxins, how come we're not all dead? Well, we will be, right? But certain people are going to get there sooner than the rest of us. And how do you determine that disease risk? Here is a simple formula that's straight out of the medical literature. This is from a journal, Environmental Health Perspectives, that says there's 3 different things you can look at. There's toxic potency. Okay? Most conventional toxicology looks at the potency issue. Well, there's a quote that I think is very powerful that says, what are you more concerned about? How much lead it takes to kill a child? Or how much lead does it take to cause mental dysfunction? Or anemia? So the conventional perspective in toxicology is to say, we want to know how much it takes to kill a person. And if it doesn't kill a person, who cares about the effects of low-dose exposure? Well, if you think about low-dose exposure as something that happens every day of our lives, then you can have a lower toxic potency, but that can build up over time to increase the total body burden. And in susceptible individuals, let's say somebody with a vitamin D deficiency, or somebody with an intestinal microbiome that's off. They don't have the right kind of bacteria in their gut, so they can't process these toxins very effectively. That person is going to be more susceptible. So you see how you can change these different variables so that one person can be highly susceptible, even if their body burden isn't that great and the toxic potency isn't that great. That person that maybe we call a chemically sensitive individual can get really sick from just a little bit of a chemical. But the traditional perspective of toxicology is we only care about this. We don't care about the rest of it. And that is changing. I want to tell you, this is changing. This is in the research, it's changing. So typically this is how the government sets a standard. It says, well, here's the increasing exposure to a toxicant, and here's the level that it takes to do harm. So let's take this point here and say the average person is going to get harmed here. Let's cut that in half. And we'll say everything below that, don't worry about it. But susceptible individuals are the ones that are going to get harmed. And there is a subcategory of the population that is susceptible by definition, and that's our children. And part of the reason I'm so invested in doing this toxic research is because I don't want the next generation to come to us and say, why didn't you do something? Because we're the ones that have to deal with it. So what is the total toxic burden? What determines that? Well, it's our exposure minus our ability to detoxify and excrete. So that little video you saw in the beginning said in versus out. Well, there's just a little bit more to it than that. It's what's coming in, and then something has to happen to it. And then you excrete it. Very basic concept, 3-hour biochemistry, pharmacology lecture down to one slide, which is that if the toxins are water soluble, you can pee them out if you drink enough water. And I've seen in the conventional medical literature stuff that downplays the value of detoxification because it says, gee, just drink more water. Drink more water and you'll flush out all the toxins. Well, that completely ignores the research that says the toxins we're most concerned about are the ones that are fat soluble, because the fat soluble ones go into our body fat and hang out in our body fat. How do they get out of the body fat? Well, little bits of them will leach out into the bloodstream, go through the liver, and the liver has enzymes that will biotransform those toxins. And that's where it gets really exciting, because we know that we can influence that process of biotransformation. An amazing study just came out that was done in China, where there are a lot of exposure to environmental toxins. Believe me, I was there last year, and you can't see across the street because of the smog. If any of you have seen the movie Her, it's filmed in Shanghai, and he keeps walking through all these tall buildings, and you see the smog in the background all the time. And I thought, well, that's smog light compared to Beijing, right? It's a really great place to study environmental toxicity, because everybody has a high total toxic load. This study basically gave people ground up broccoli sprouts. Ground up, they made a drink out of these broccoli sprouts, and it doesn't taste good, I can tell you that. So they mixed it with lime juice. And they had them drink this for several months, and then they measured the toxins they were excreting, and you know what happened? The level of the toxins in their urine went way up, and it stayed up. That's the important thing. It stayed up. It didn't just go up overnight. It stayed up for months. So the idea that you can support, that you can activate this detoxification, this biotransformation process, and you can keep it going over a long period of time and thereby lower the person's total toxic load, is a completely valid scientific concept. So this is what I'm saying. Certain foods have been shown to activate the enzymes in our liver and in other tissues in our body that can transform fat-soluble toxins and move them out of the system. And the most potent group of vegetables that have been shown to do this are Brasica vegetables. Now that is a very truncated list, right? There's a lot of other foods. Green tea will do it. Turmeric will do it. And Dr. Minnick is an expert on this and will tell you lots and lots about this. But I just wanted to give you the idea that there's research behind this. This is not some fringe thing. This is current state-of-the-art research. That research that I'm talking about came out of Johns Hopkins. And I hope we're going to see a lot more of it. So here are the principles of how to detoxify according to functional medicine. Number one, obviously, is you want to minimize exposure. Don't put anything on your skin that you wouldn't eat. It's that simple. Think about what you put on your lawn. I'm not totally against the use of all pesticides and weed killers and things like that, but I am extremely judicious, I won't use Roundup. In fact, I'm having a little raffle after this lecture, and I'm going to give away my unopened canister of Roundup that I have at home that I bought and have never been able to bring myself to open. So I'm not totally back to the land, all natural, etc. I can see how there might be a value to occasionally using these things, but the more you think about it, the less you want to use them. So number one, minimize exposure. Number two, have better poops. It's the best way I can put it, is that, high quality bowel movements are one of the best things you can do to get these toxins out of your system, which means lots of fiber, good hydration. I don't argue with that recommendation to keep the hydration up, but it's got to be quality water. You've got to think about where it's coming from. Has it been purified? Some parts of this country, you don't want to be drinking tap water without a filter. Sweating is good. I was in a dance class this morning, and it was hot, and a lot of people were sweating, and I said, you should charge extra. You should call this a detoxification class. For 20 extra bucks, we're all detoxifying away. Enhancing antioxidant reserves. You might have heard a lot of stuff in the research literature about how antioxidants are really not that good for you, etc. Well, no one's arguing that plant-based antioxidants, which is blueberries, raspberries, strawberries, green tea, curcumin from turmeric, no one is arguing that that stuff is, they're not saying that's unhealthy. There is some debate. Does it really help to just take vitamin C by itself? Well, it's not enough. It's got to be plant-based. So that's what I mean by antioxidant reserves. And then finally, supporting biotransformation of toxicants. And what I mean by that is simply activating those enzymes in the liver with things like brassica vegetables, broccoli, bok choy, Brussels sprouts, watercress. All of those foods are particularly good for moving things through your system. We have some very elaborate food plans, which I think you're going to hear about in more detail later on. I just want to mention we have an elimination diet. We have the plant spectrum diet. We have a detox food plan. And then we personalize all this stuff for the individual. So it's not just, hey, just eat better. I think Michael Pollan, he's got the right idea, you know. Don't eat too much and mostly eat plants. You can't really improve on that, but we can get very specific. And that's what the Institute of Functional Medicine has done in some detail. That's what it looks like. Doesn't that just make you feel good? See, I have to show these pictures at the end so that you don't come away with the Dr. Doom, we're all going to die. So a gentle daily detox program that I recommend to most of my patients. Healthy bacteria, probiotics, fiber, oats, flax, chia seeds, I love. Chlorella, green algae, a number of studies showing the benefits of chlorella. Brassica vegetables, I mentioned, green tea, spices, garlic, rosemary, curry, pomegranate juice, red wine or little purple grape juice, organic chocolate, makes you smile, yes, milk thistle, vitamin D, N-acetylcysteine, and alpha-lipoic acid. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to my esteemed colleagues, and they're going to tell you what all this means. So thank you very much for your time.
All right. Thanks so... Are we up? Thanks so much, Dr. Roundtree. Really appreciate it. I know it's a difficult topic to do in 20 minutes, and you did a lovely job in starting this conversation. Part of the reason why we're here is because the IFM is doing a couple modules this weekend. We've got the hormone module, the detox module, and that's why people are flying from all around the world to come and do this, clinicians. But what I wanted to talk about before we get into that is how we're going to scale this type of care to every American, because that is really what we're talking about. It has to happen. And I think what we're seeing is that people are getting interested in this. You know, you just have to read the literature, or you just have to be on, there are so many websites. We've had a great partnership this year with Mind Body Green, and their CEO, Jason, they've got to 20 million unique monthly viewers now with just this type of content all the time. And Jason, who's the CEO, says, you know, we're not preaching to the choir, we're looking to grow the church. And the church is growing, and they're looking for this type of support. However, I think we might be hitting a natural limit of the number of people that can go and have lengthy one-to-one appointments with functional medicine doctors, right? This is an issue that we're going to have to face. Can everyone afford all of these products to go and see these kind of things? So we need to find ways to scale it. So what I wanted to talk just for a moment, because we're all health professionals in here, is what are some of the strategies that are being used right now to deliver this kind of care to more different people? So obviously individual is a great way. You get a lot of inspiration from working with a practitioner, individualizing it and so forth, and I think that's a great way, and for most people that's a great starting point. But let's look at some other things. So as I mentioned earlier, in the Evolution of Medicine Summit, Dr. Frank Lipman is a doctor in New York, and he's one of many. He is one doctor with 7 health coaches, because he wants to provide, it's all cash, but he's providing at a much lower price point, and the health coaches have the skills to be able to change the behavior, because this is not, and we're going to talk about this in a minute, we have to wonder whether patriarchy and lifestyle medicine are going to mix, and I'll explain that a little bit further in a minute. So health coaches is one. I think that the combination of health coaches who have the skills of coaching plus the clinical skills of the doctor is a great model for the future. The other model for doing detoxes, which has been very familiar and is easy, is what I call the guru model. So the guru model is to prescribe Mark Hyman's 10-day detox book. Everyone follows the recipes, everyone reads the book. You know, if we're going to get another 10, 20, 30, 50 times as many doctors practicing this type of medicine in America, is it actually going to be credible that each one of them has their own plan and they all just come up with their own plan. I think there's some value in curating that. And I know plenty of people that are going out and doing these different gurus' programs and doing great and having a great experience and having basically less intervention with the practitioner or less interaction. The third model, which I think has a lot of potential, and again, this is going to be on the Evolution of Medicine Summit, and this topic is so hot that it's in the IFM and it's also being looked at everywhere else, is group visits. Dr. Shilpa Saxena, if you haven't come across her, she has developed a model of doing insurance-based group visits. And insurance-based group visits, I think, could be a really good fit for detoxification, because you know what? People have been doing detox groups all over the country and doing it very successfully. And the reason why is because people need this accountability and structure of other people. People want to hear about the triumphs and tribulations of other people within the group with doing this. They want to hear about where they're getting their non-toxic products in the local community, and that's why the group visit model, I think, has a lot of potential. And people have been doing group detoxes for a while, but I think this is something that will continue to develop, and it's especially exciting to see that Medicare and other organizations are endorsing the group visit model for this kind of thing. And then they also have, I think there's a lot of potential in the digital. We've spoken a lot about the digital and digital detoxes, and I'm very excited that one of my friends, Dr. Deanna Minich, who's here in the audience and is going to be talking shortly on the panel, is attempting a Guinness Book World Record for the biggest group detox ever, and it's going to be in September, and yeah, I'm really excited to see how it goes, and you know, it's exciting to see the scale that's available through the digital side. So again, we'll be talking more about this on the summit, but one of the most popular, so the genesis of the Functional Forum was this other group that Gabe Hoffman and I started, and in the first Functional Forum, and you can watch this talk on YouTube, Gabe talked about something that he's really passionate about, and the name of the talk was Empowerment is the New Compliance. And I think we have to really think about how we're actually doing detoxification, and so I want to do a little segment. I'd like to bring up Gabe, and we're going to talk about whether detoxification can be done in a patriarchal medical model. So can you welcome Gabe Hoffman to the stage? All right, Gabe.
Thanks, James.
So
it's exciting to see everyone here. This is cool.
So why'd you care about this? We've spoken about patriarchy and these kind of things. Why is this important to you?
The way I got involved in natural medicine and caring about functional medicine was, initially I started as a patient in conventional model. When I was 17, I was diagnosed with Hodgkin's disease. I had chemotherapy, radiation. I did that for about 5 years, and eventually, as a result of not necessarily getting better, I started pursuing other avenues, which led me to natural medicine, functional medicine, going back to school for nutrition, studying with some doctors. And so when I look back now, I'm 33. I've spent more than half of my life as either a patient or a practitioner. And I feel, as a result, I've noticed some of the things that, from my experience, I've been able to do with people as I've worked with them. And you know, I'm not a functional medicine doctor, but yet I've been very successful working with people because I've been able to get them to embrace the process I've taken them through. And one of the things I've noticed just from meeting doctors and all the work we've been doing is sometimes a lot of people are not following the protocol. You know, Dr. Bob Browntree, what he just went over, it's so obvious. It seems so clear that you would just do this, but yet it's something we've talked about. People are going to a massage therapist, an acupuncturist, a nutritionist, a doctor. They're going to 8 people, and then they're going online and Googling. And what they're doing is just taking from all these different places that they, you know, and then they put together their own thing that makes sense to them. So one of the most important things is, how do we develop a relationship with the patients or the clients we're working with, where there's enough of a relationship and trust that they're going to follow what we're saying and tell us what they're doing? Because I don't think that's happening often enough, and as often as it could. So that's something that I've gotten very passionate about. And
you've said before, and I agree with this, is that this list of things that you're giving to patients could basically just go on another massive list of other things that patients already feel guilty that they're not doing. So how do we get over this part?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you know, when people come and see us or see doctors, they already know there are things they need to do that they're not doing. And so we've talked about is you can give someone a list of 20 things, and that's going to go on top of another list of 5 things in their mind that they're not doing, and they may not do any of them. So the question is, how can we engage them in a way that makes them feel like a participant? And when you brought up the patriarchal model, that model is really just us giving a list of things for someone to do and then sending them away and basically saying, look, I'm going to save you, you follow me, and this is how you're going to get better. And I think what we're seeing today is people want to be part of a team. And the truth is people have to feel empowered. And so I've taken some steps. There's some specific things we could talk about.
Why don't you go through that? There's the 3 steps that I think you outlined in the first functional forum was transformative to a lot of the people who were listening to it. And I'd love to share that with the group today.
Yeah, my whole focus is how can I engage the person I'm working with in their process so they feel empowered? Because I know the truth is our session can be great, but that's not really where it happens. It happens when they're not in the session. So how do I keep them engaged, and how do I develop a relationship where they're going to be honest with me?
Before you tell the 3, I just want to say that this has to happen for detoxification, because detoxification isn't done in a doctor's office. It is done outside in every aspect of your life. It's all the toxins that you're not, that you're avoiding through how you're shopping and the cosmetics. If this is just something that's done to you, which is the traditional medical model, we're going to lose really quickly because that can't happen. So I just think with detoxification particularly, this is a huge topic.
Yeah, and these are really just simple things that I've picked up over time. But the first thing is I always have people write down their instructions. Now, look, if you have a whole long list, you might want to give them some of it already pre-printed, but you want to get them writing their own, just their own steps that they have to take, because number one, when you write something, it imprints differently in the brain. There's a lot of coordination that goes on for someone to write something down, and so just that alone makes a difference. But number two, it involves them in it. Again, it's a step where they're doing something. They're now part of the process. It's not you handing them their instructions. It's you and them on a team, and they're now writing it down, and this is starting a different type of relationship. And it's something that kind of just came about, but I just noticed more and more how important it became. And my handwriting isn't great, so it also started because sometimes I didn't know if people could read what I was even giving them. So I just found that having them get involved right from the beginning was important, and that was just an easy way.
That's basically the opposite of the prescription pad, where the prescription pad is, doctor, do this. This is the opposite. This is them taking responsibility.
Yeah, I give them a pad in the beginning of the session. Some people do come prepared with that, but usually I just always give them a pad first and myself, so we both can do that from the beginning.
So that's stage one.
That's number one. Yeah, number two is you want to engage them with the things that they already know that they're not doing that they should do. They want to do those things. And always I let people pick at least one thing that they're going to choose as part of the plan. So, I just ask them, what's one thing you need to be doing that you're not doing? And then they get to pick it. And I say, okay, so if it's exercising or drinking more water or whatever that is, and the people have stuff. They always have stuff. They drink too much soda. They have too much, whatever it is, and it may not come up in your detox. So I let them pick it, and we write it down, and I let them choose, how often, they're going to walk 2 miles 4 times a week, and that's their thing. And we write it down, and it's as important as anything else we do. And that is just such a powerful relationship builder, and it sets up a situation that you can build off of when they come in for the follow-up. So yeah, the second step is always I give people an opportunity to pick part of our plan, and it's coming from what they feel like they should be doing, which again engages them and I feel empowers them in the process.
And then part 3?
Yeah, part 3 is when they come back for the follow-up. So when they come back, you're going to check in on what they've been doing, and it's extremely important and critical to check in on this thing that they chose, because they've been waiting to talk to you about it. This is something they're excited about. This is the thing that they knew they should do, and this is something they're going to be proud of. And so right there you have an opportunity to develop your relationship further. If you don't ask them about it, it will bother them. They will not say that, but it will affect them because they are thinking about it. They'll bring it up to you. So if you ask them about it, it shows, that you care and that you do take them seriously and as an important part of the process, which is what has to happen. One of 2 things will happen in that conversation. One is that they did it, and they did what they said they were going to do, and that's great, and it's something, to celebrate, and then you can continue on and making them an important part of it. The second thing that can happen is they didn't do it. And this is actually can be, in my opinion, more valuable than if they did. Because what happens is people come in, they didn't follow it exactly, or they didn't do what they had agreed to do, and they're used to being punished for that. And they've been punishing themselves for it. And this is an opportunity to just compassionately be like, it's okay. And just, was it too difficult? And just change the goal. and just work with them on what it will be the next time. And we have not had a lot of that in our lives, you know, and so to be the person who not only involves them in their process, but listens to them and then compassionately gives them permission to not be perfect and to continue in the process with them will change the connection you have, and really, I've found, can develop a really, you know, trusting relationship to where they're not going and doing 10 different things without telling me. That pretty much we're on the same page, and I'm incorporating them as part of what we're doing, and it's more of a team. And yeah, I just find that it's very simple, but it's very powerful from what I've seen.
I think it's very powerful. I had to bring that up this evening because I really feel like that's really the heart of the Functional Forum, what you're hearing with Gabe. You know, the concepts that we've driven through the Functional Forum have come from long discussions a long time ago between Gabe and I about these type of topics. And so we just wanted to bring it in. It was actually probably the most profound moment of the first season of the Functional Forum. And so thanks so much, Gabe, for sharing that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we're excited to continue to talk about it, and the way that these types of concepts play into what's going to be researched more with the placebo effect and how every individual is affecting their process. So much of that goes down to the relationship. And, you know, the information is what we need, but I think the relationship is what really activates all of the healing with people. And, you know, not every doctor is going to be able to sit and do one-on-one, but that's why I think group sessions, the digital detox, because support and community is what gets people to continue and to stay motivated to take action. So, yeah, thank you. I'm glad to share that.
Let's have a round for Gabe. All right. So in a couple minutes, we're going to take questions and we're going to bring up the panel. But I just wanted to just to show you something a little bit different. Can we bring up the other video? This is a video that we made last year. It's not really relevant to the time of year. It's a little bit relevant to what we're talking about today. But what we really wanted to highlight for you guys today is some of the stuff that we're going to be doing in the future. So we're going to show this video. If the panelists can come up during the video and take their seats, as soon as the video is finished, we'll start and I'll introduce all the panelists. So let's crack on to the video.
Hello, I'm James Maskell, and we're here for Breast Cancer Awareness Month. It's October, and I have a new book coming out. It's called The Pink Diet, Feeding the Troops for the War on Cancer.
That sounds great, James. I'm excited to hear about your new book.
Dana James, it's great to have you here today.
Thank you.
Dana is owner of Food Coach NYC and a triple board certified nutritionist. So let's start with breakfast. It's the most important meal of the day. I'm sure you'd agree with that.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. So, what could be healthier, pinkier than the New York institution? We're talking about Panera Bread's pink ribbon bagel. What do you think of that?
Okay, so the bagel's very dense in carbohydrates, and all those carbohydrates convert to sugar, and sugar fuels cancer. So I think we can do better than that, and we'll go for something that's a little bit more protein based.
Okay.
Okay.
So you don't like the breakfast, but let's go on to the lunch, because I know you said maybe I need something a bit more proteinous. Is that what you were suggesting?
Mm-hmm.
Well, actually what you'll see is that my lunch is very high in protein. In fact, it's pretty much all protein. It's another American institution, one of my personal favorites. It is the pink KFC bucket.
Okay, so you're talking about fried chicken for lunch?
Yeah, fried chicken.
Okay, so when you fry a food, you have damaged fats and damaged protein, and that's actually carcinogenic.
Carcinogenic? What does that mean?
Carcinogenic means it's cancer promoting.
Cancer promoting.
Yes.
But it's pink, so they give 50 cents to Susan G. Komen Foundation.
Right, but it's cancer promoting. It's not helping to decrease cancer.
Okay. Can we just cut for a moment? I'm just going to make a quick call. Excuse me.
Okay.
Paul? Yeah, I think we got to halt production on the book. Dana doesn't like the bagel, the KFC bucket. It's not going well. I told her it was pink. No, yeah, I know. I was the one who said we should get Rachel Ray. I mean, she'll endorse anything. But you said Dana James is the best. No, she doesn't like the diet. All right. Well, I'll just carry on, and we'll see where to go from there. Okay. Sorry about that.
Okay.
So, all right. 3, 2, 1. We're back in the room. Well, one thing you don't know about me is that I'm also very holistic. Do you know what holism is?
Yes.
Holistic? Okay. So we're a bit tired after lunch. What's better? Quick pep, cleanse the palate, pink 5-hour energy.
Okay, so what you're getting is a shot of caffeine, some sucralose, and colorings. So that's just going to not be optimal for your health. So it's going to shoot up your energy levels and then drop you really, really, really flat.
But you know, it's pink, so they give money to the charity.
Right, which I think is wonderful of them, but from a cancer decreasing diet, this isn't the direction that you want to be going in. You want something that's a little bit more antioxidant promoting.
I'm a bit torn because I like the KFC, and they give 50 cents for every bucket to breast cancer research. So let's say the CEO of Susan G. Komen Foundation, if she makes, I don't know, 700 grand a year, I think that's about right, I'd only have to eat 1.4 million buckets of KFC to pay her salary just for a year.
I think the better approach might be to stop people getting cancer, as opposed to eating foods that contribute to cancer just so that you pass on a little bit of money for a little bit of research.
So what are some pink foods that are good for you if those are not good? Because I thought I was pretty solid with those choices, given, you know, the pink and the ribbon and...
Okay, well, you're on the right theme. There are some great pink choices. I've got 3 for you. One would be red cabbage. So red cabbage is rich in a nutrient called sulforaphane, and that helps to metabolize excess estrogen, which can contribute to breast cancer. The other one is pink grapefruit. It's incredibly dense in vitamin C and vitamin A, and these are 2 antioxidants which help to protect the cells from degradation. And another one is pink Himalayan salt. So the pink Himalayan salt has 70 different electrolytes in it, and it helps to alkalize the body. And when we get the body into an alkalized state, it helps to decrease cancer, because cancer feeds off an acidic environment. So those 3 would be a better choice for you, and I'm more than happy to work with you on coming up with some recipes for your book.
Well, thanks, Dana James. It's been great to have you. Sort of embarrassed me, if I'm honest.
No.
Well, I thought I had a pretty solid diet, and, you know, I thought you couldn't go wrong with pink. But it's given me some ideas, and I think we'll maybe come back next October with a slightly different approach.
Thank you, James.
Thanks so much for being here. I'm James Maskell, and we'll see you next time.
All right, just a banter interlude. Let's have, we've got Dr. Roundtree, Donna Embry, Dr. Donna Embry, Dr. Minich here, and Dr. Carnahan. You want to come up for the panel discussion. We've had some great questions from Twitter already, and so we'll be asking those. There'll probably be time for a few questions here as well. This is a verifiable dream team of panelists. I'm so glad to have all of you here. So, why don't I start here with Dr. Jill Carnahan. Dr. Carnahan, you practice just up the road in Boulder. I know that toxicity has you got the mic there, has a personal interest for you and so forth. Can you share a little bit about, you know, briefly just about your story and what got you passionate about toxicity and dealing with it?
Absolutely. Thank you, James. It's 2001. 25 years old. I was in third-year medical school, and if any of you remember that, it's intense. I was in about 80 to 100 hours a week of work, and I find a lump in my breast. So this was very, very hit home with your video. 25 years old, diagnosed about 10 days later with aggressive breast cancer. And what that started was a journey to learn root cause, as we do in functional medicine, and to try to find my own health and healing in that process. And so detoxification became a really important issue. And if we go back even further to 1976, I was born, Central Illinois, a farming community. Myself and 3 brothers and a sister, and my parents who farmed conventional corn and soybeans. And I later looked up atrazine, which is a known carcinogen, organophosphates, all of these chemicals we talked about, which are heavy in use in those farm communities in Iowa and Illinois. And atrazine, I just happened to Google, you know, you can get the maps where they show a percentage of use among the U.S. Well, guess what? The bright red, the brightest of the bright red, right exactly where I grew up, like literally on the dot in central Illinois. And again, it started me on a journey to realize how these chemicals are affecting us. And so I had aggressive chemotherapy, radiation, multiple surgeries. And one thing that'll just tell you how serious this is in young women, I was in a group of young women under 40, and there was 12 of us. I'm the only one still living, alive. That's it. So what my passion has been with functional medicine is looking at root cause. How do we detoxify our patients? How do we teach them how to live well, how to get rid of the chemicals in cosmetics and in food and in farm chemicals, and working on getting rid of the genetically modified foods and the glyphosate. And we've heard all this already tonight, but I'm very passionate because it's hit home. And if I give you one take home from my story, this is how I approach patients. 3 things. I look at genetics, because what I later learned is my own genes. I was a landmine of pretty much every poor detox gene you could have. I've got them. One other point, my sister at age 28, she's 7 years younger than me, was diagnosed with thyroid cancer. So you obviously can tell from our history and our genetics that there is this toxicity, and how detox could have affected us had we known. Probably even affected us before birth. So number 1, I said genetics. Number 2 is environment, which is those chemicals. And number 3 is the gut. And the other part of my story I didn't tell you was a year after I had breast cancer, got through all the chemo radiation, I felt like I was surviving and done with that. I was diagnosed with Crohn's disease. So I am cured of both. I live here. I'm living proof that you can heal through functional medicine. Doing great. But again, you want to look at your patient's environment, genetics, and the gut. And that's how I look at detox for my patients.
That's awesome. And I want to come back to the microbes, because as far as I'm concerned, Bob is the microbe king. And I know that when I heard you lecture before, you know all about that. But I just want to go on to Dr. Donna Embry, because I worked with Dr. Embry for a number of years in my last career. And I just want to talk about homotoxicology. For those people who don't know that much about it, it's a context for understanding complex homeopathy. And whether or not you're interested in complex homeopathy, I feel like there's something that all of us could learn as clinicians in how to explain to patients how toxicity has driven their disease in that process. Because a lot of people like Jill go, I was healthy cancer. That really probably wasn't the case, just no one was putting the dots together. So do you think you could quickly explain that model and sort of why you feel like it's an important model for patient education? Because that was your original love, I know, was education, and done such a good job. I probably told your whole story with a question, but go for it anyway.
Well, there's a little bit more. The body is a flow system. And I think that that's one of the simplest patient education pieces that we can share with patients. They get that. They understand that. Dr. Reckwig was a German medical doctor.
Just go into the mic. Speak right into it.
Who came up with this. Yeah. Ooh. Who came up with the model of homotoxicology back in 1948. He was actually a pharmacist. And he was looking at the impact that drugs had on the body. So anytime you use a pharmaceutical drug, it's going to target an enzyme. And he knew that the body was a flow system. And if you take out enzymes, there's a ripple effect. And so he created this model, homotoxicology, which essentially is 6 phases that look at how you move from being a flow system into cancer. So the body's a flow system. Toxins come in, toxins go out. When the body creates a symptom, it's the body using pressure to push the toxin into excretion. What do? And we're trained as a society that symptoms are bad, and we want to stop them as fast as we can. So just that one realization for patients to understand that symptoms are actually the body's cry for help is a life changer. So through homotoxicology, we can actually teach them to work with the rhythms and cycles of life, to listen to their body, and to restore the flow. The body is a bioregulatory system. It knows how to maintain health. It absolutely does. And so through homotoxicology, we can educate and inspire people to take responsibility for their health. And one of the main things they need to do is get back in sync with the rhythm and flow, their passion. And after that, I mean, the body begins to relax, the autonomic nervous system comes on, and everything else that we're doing clinically begins to follow suit. So if the body's not able to excrete, then it will take the toxin and deposit it. That's phase 3. More toxins come in if the body cannot excrete it. Then you start to get the layers of the onion. That's the impregnation phase. From there, the tissue starts to degenerate. In there, you're going to find all kinds of disease processes that could eventually end a life. The so-called autoimmune conditions, lupus, MS, heart attack. If somebody survives that phase, they enter the neoplasm phase, which is cancer. So I have watched patients walk in the door with a cancer diagnosis, and they're ready to grab a lily and lay down because of that diagnosis. And when you share the chart of homotoxicology with them and help them to understand that this developed over time and that there is actually a path out of it, they walk out taller than they were when they came in. And you really start to create this relationship with them that inspires them to take responsibility for the healing process. So it's transformative.
That's great, and it brings into exactly what Gabe was talking about this sort of non-patriarchal model for communication, and I think that is the beginning of starting that. And I think if people really understood, when I've spoken to people who've been diagnosed and explain that model, they suddenly get it. They don't feel like they're a victim. They understand the process, and now they have a pathway back, and I think that's huge. Deanna, if I could go on to you quickly here. You've just interviewed 30 of the gurus on all areas of detox for the Detox Summit. You have it coming up next month. For those clinicians here, what are some takeaway nuggets that you didn't expect? You've been doing this for a long time too. What are some takeaway nuggets that you think that the people in the room could use in their practice straight away?
Well, to really reinforce a lot of what everybody else is saying, when I was interviewing these 30 experts, it was like bringing a university into my home office. It was great to have the interaction with a variety of different experts in detox. So even though we talked a lot about food detox, nutrition, we went a little bit broader than that. So we went into emotions, emotional toxins. We went into the mind and mental toxins and toxic beliefs. And we also talked about spiritual toxicity. So it's really a very holistic view of detox and toxicity. So what I noticed in clinical practice is that if I didn't address those things, that they were just going to start bubbling up. And I would have to deal with the emotions that would come up. And so just dealing with them as we went and having a structure for that was really instrumental. So it was great because we had a whole host of functional medicine practitioners really fortifying a lot of the concepts that we learn about through the detox module and through functional medicine training. And then we had some people that weren't part of that whole functional medicine system, but really bringing them into that community. So people like David Wolf, who's a superfoods expert, Rainbow Mars, a supermodel, talking about her book on detox. Also, I have a Native American woman who studies and really brings out a lot of the Native American tradition of spirituality and toxicity. You know, thinking about things like a sweat lodge. We talked about saunas. So this whole detox summit, I think, is really important for the sake of raising the bar of credibility for detox. For many years that I was studying detoxification with Dr. Bland, creating products around detox, really feeling like there was so much pushback sometimes when we weren't preaching to the choir. You know, when we were actually getting out there and talking with different people, saying, but the body just detoxes naturally. Why do you need any kind of product? Why do you have to change food? Why do you even have to think about emotions or the mind? So when we had this idea some months ago, it was really great to get to the involvement of the Institute for Functional Medicine. They were very keen on collaborating with me on this whole endeavor, and I'm really grateful because we are really going to take detox to a whole new level.
So you'll hear lots of different distillations from the different speakers. And what I would say is that the research is changing on a daily basis. You know, we can no longer just sit and think that, you know, just think of random toxins. I mean, things are changing by the minute, by the moment. Every day I get a new paper on toxicity. I get all the different press releases, and there's always something. So this is rapidly changing, and I feel like it's our obligation as practitioners to inform patients on the new science. So, and also the clinical medicine piece as well. So it's really been an honor and a privilege, and I'm so excited to have all of these speakers from different disciplines, also steeped in functional medicine, and really cultivating what is a functional medicine detox? What is the role of phytonutrients? We have Dr. Christy Hughes talking about sequencing a detox, all the different ways that one can do that. So I think it's going to be very eye-opening for many people as they take part in that, the whole endeavor of the Detox Summit itself, and then also putting it into motion once they're inspired.
Awesome. All right. We're gonna take a question from Twitter here. One of our favorite doctors who's spoken before, Dr. Jeff Glad, and maybe I can give this to you, Dr. Roundtree. He asks, what's the best way to investigate heavy metal burden? Urine, hair, or blood?
The best way, yeah, in a nutshell?
Yeah, nutshell.
I would say all of the above.
Okay. Have you? This is not from Twitter.
I do. I mean, I would do. I hear it now. If it depends, why are you doing this? I mean, you're doing it as a screen. You know, if you have a 5-year-old kid that's sitting there in the office and the mom says, "Well, I'm just concerned about heavy metals." Well, yeah. I don't tend to do that kind of investigation unless there's a problem. If you got a 5-year-old with autism, it's a whole different ballgame.
Yeah.
Then you're going to want to do all the testing that's available to you, because they all pick up slightly different things. Hair picks up something, red blood cells pick up something, looking for it in the urine picks up something. So I think the more comprehensive you can be, the better off you're going to be.
Let's say you're a doctor who's never done any testing and is just finding out tonight via the live stream that toxicity is a problem, and they want to start testing in their office on Monday or tomorrow. What would be the first steps that you'd recommend to sort of get them, you know, get them moving along? That's easy to use, easy to implement.
Testing for heavy metals?
For metals,
or testing
yeah, for metals.
Well, I think a combination of a red blood cell test, what was called an elemental analysis,
okay,
and an unprovoked urinary test.
Great.
I think this is a really simple thing that you can do. It's not expensive.
Cool.
So that's where I'd start.
That's great. Okay, so I know you guys share a practice, so you're going to share a microphone right now here as well. I want to ask you about bugs and toxins, because I heard a speaker a while ago who said that 50 to 80% of the metal detoxification of the body was actually being done by the gut microbes. And I just want to get from your perspective, maybe I could start with you, Jill, is just what... I know this is a massive topic and we could have a whole day seminar on it, but just how important the role of microbes are in detoxification, because it seems like, you know, as we've been killing off these microbes in big amounts, our potential for detoxification in the way that Bob was talking earlier is moving in a negative direction. What do you think?
There's more of them than us.
Yeah.
Our cells in our body, at least. You know, wow, if you're watching this is the data that is coming out every single day is just astounding on the human gut microbiome. And I think this is the future, the more we understand. We thought the Genome Project was the big deal, right? Well, when we found out the genome of our gut microbiome was far more important than our own genome, we start to realize how this has an effect. And this also ties into things like glyphosate, because it preferentially kills certain species and leaves us with things like Clostridia and harmful organisms. And veterinary docs and farmers have seen this for far more years ahead of humans, and now we're starting to come around as functional medicine doctors and see the same effects. So just like I said before, with the environmental piece, the genetic piece, and the gut microbiome, you've really got to make sure your patient has a healthy gut and that they're eliminating properly, because if they're not, they absolutely will come to a standstill with detox. I know with my own personal history, obviously the genetics came into play, but I had a really unhealthy gut microbiome and didn't even know it, and I know the detox for me was just at a standstill.
So some of the new research that I've seen suggests that getting out into nature might be the best probiotic that there is. is?
Eat dirt.
Eat, do that kind of thing. So are you actually sort of improving your detox pathways by going camping?
Boy, I think the more that our children can be involved with being outside, being outdoors, being involved in playing in the dirt, and that's what, children, because they're developing their immune systems, and their immune systems are checking out things all the time. And when they're very young, if they're not in contact with those environmental triggers and things, they won't develop a healthy immune system, and they're more likely to develop autoimmune diseases.
Awesome. All right, well, we've had another question from Twitter. Bob, you want to add to that? Go to it, the microbe king here.
How many second rule is it when you drop stuff on the ground? The 5-second rule. I mean, turns out not to be such a bad idea.
Yeah.
The whole question is your immune system gets programmed in the first year or two of life.
Yeah.
If you're deprived of those inputs from the dirt, can you do something about it later on in life? I don't think we should go out of our way to eat dirt. I mean, we talk about it because the concept is good, but hopefully you can accomplish that with probiotics and with certain immune regulators like medicinal mushrooms. That may be how medicinal mushrooms are working. If you go to the other side of the globe, it's considered very normal for people to eat shiitake mushrooms or maitake mushrooms, things like that. Well, that's probably taking the place of the deprivation that we've had to our immune system in our gut. So I just wanted to throw that in. There's a positive thing you can do besides eating a spoonful of dirt. We are obsessed about sterility. And guess what? It's impossible to avoid microbes. They are everywhere. The new DNA studies are showing, conclusively showing this, because in the past, all you could do is swab a surface, put it on a culture plate, and see if it grows. And if it didn't grow, well, we don't think it's there. Now you can do a swab, and you can do a DNA probe, and you can see if it's there, whether you can grow it or not. And it's there. There are bugs everywhere. And probably one of the nastiest things on the planet is the kitchen sponge. Just thought I'd throw that out.
All right. That's good. Yeah, good to know. So let's, it's scary. Okay. Deanna, we've had a question. Maybe I can give this one to you. Are BPA-free plastics worth considering, or best to be avoid plastic completely?
My personal view on this is to look at plastics overall. I think that we get so focused on one compound, just like one nutrient and, the quick fix, and just get so focused on things. But what we just learned from a study that came out probably two weeks ago or so is that the replacement plastic, Bisphenol S, was also very toxic. And if you start looking into bisphenols, you find Bisphenol A, B, C. It's almost like every letter of the alphabet has a bisphenol attached to it. So I would want to ask, as we all sit here with our water bottles, I would want to ask what was the replacement plastic. But even beyond that, just to really avoid plastic as much as possible, I think is the best way. And go with glass, go with stainless steel, inert matter, in order to really prevent the interaction, whether it's through temperature extremes or through the liquid itself. So,
absolutely. That's
really important.
Good one.
Yeah.
And I mean, the other issue about plastic is what it's doing to our ocean. I think that often it doesn't come up in discussions about detoxification because we're more concerned about human health. But I mean, these things they're destroying the ocean. And once those oceans are gone, it's not like we can get another one.
Exactly.
There are places where animals, you go way, way, way out in the ocean and you find birds that their stomach is full of plastic beads. It's a concern. It's, they're here and I'm drinking them, but I don't, I personally think these bottles are really bad for the planet. You
got a very robust microbiome though, because you live in Boulder, so I think you'll be all right. Just one more question from Twitter, and then I want to come back to Dr. Embry. Is toxic load from natural plant toxins more or less of a concern than in general than from synthetic chemicals? So plant toxins versus synthetic chemicals. This is Natural Health Daily tweeting in to ask you, Bob.
I would respond based on a comment made by my friend James Duke. Dr. Duke was with the USDA for many years. He wrote the definitive book on botanical medicine, has been studying this for years. Basically what Dr. Duke says is that we've been coexisting with plants, the things that we've been eating, for millions of years, right? The microbiomes that we have that, we got from our ancestors. Those were from animals that were eating broccoli or some precursor to broccoli. The reason broccoli is so good for you is because it contains pesticides. Right? Well, they're pesticides, and agricultural companies know this. Those chemicals, they're called glucosinolates, are actually extracted and sprayed on fields. I mean, they're really powerful pesticides. But what Dr. Duke says, and also what Dr. Bruce Ames says, who is a biochemist at UC Berkeley, is that our systems have been coexisting with these natural pesticides for so long that we've actually evolved in a way that we take advantage of them. Yeah. That they're beneficial. So this whole concept of being able to increase our ability to transform toxins and move it through our system, that comes from consuming certain plant toxins. Absolutely. Now, there are toxins that kill you right away, like, well, curare, that's not plant. What's a good plant toxin? Yeah, certain alkaloids, you know. Well, a little bit of alkaloids, like a little bit of cocaine, isn't so bad for you, I guess. But a lot of cocaine, and the person, their heart races. Can't believe that I would say that.
That's not.
I'm just saying.
That's not an official endorsement of the Functional Forum. Well, everyone's back to Bob's in Boulder afterwards.
The toxins that are really bad for you kill you right off. Yeah. The toxins that we get exposed to in low doses every day are by and large beneficial, which is very different than the synthetic toxins that really just came into being in the last 80, 90 years.
Yeah, that's a big
It's a whole different ballgame.
It's amazing.
And also the plant is very complex in its constitution. So it's not only the toxins in the plant, but the other constituents like the nutrients, carotenoids, and all the protective constituents as well that are complementing and working as a family, as a unit, really, to make sure that it's not so toxic, right, and received in the body. But there are certain things that are, of course, just blatantly toxic too.
Donna, maybe I could just ask you, I know you four are all very passionate about educating, and you all do it in very different ways. Donna, I know you started as a teacher. We have to educate a lot of people in a short period of time about this, because we're probably about to do some damage that we're not going to walk away from as a race. What are some tools, and I'll start with you, Donna, and whoever wants to jump in, what are the best tools for really engaging, the same thing that Bob engaged in me to learn everything that I could about the microbiome? How do we make this something that people want to learn about, rather than something that they just add to another big list of things that they don't want to know about because it's too damn depressing?
Well, we want to give them information that makes sense. And there's a lot of fragmented information out there. One thing that we can do, the model that we can use, is the design of the body. And as we do that, we can easily teach patients about how their bodies work. The body heals the same way it developed. During the 4th week of gestation is when the gastrula is formed. That's the gut tube and the brain. And simply by following that model, we can help people understand why it's so important to focus on the gut, restoring the microbiome, those types of things like that. Understanding that when the autonomic nervous system goes off, disease soon follows. And so as we empower people to get back into the flow of life, where they're following the rhythms and cycles. There's a reason why the sun comes up and it goes down. We've got our pedal to the metal, and we need to slow down and start focusing on what matters most. So the design of the body, if we look at that, all of the keys are there. And then we know that the body on one level is a great big filter. So the model of homotoxicology is great. It is a match made in heaven for functional medicine. All of the puzzle pieces are starting to come together today.
Thanks so much, Donna. Jill, I know you're a passionate educator as well. What are some of the tools that you've used to really engage this with patients?
Yeah, so start with what you're putting on your body. For women, again, we saw the cosmetics and stuff, and I'll tell you honestly, with my journey, it took probably 3 or 4 years to get everything in my environment and my home, all the toxins out. And if you start, when I first started looking at the data and looking at the list, it's overwhelming. So you start with small changes. Maybe it's makeup, maybe it's lotion, maybe it's not drinking out of plastic water bottles. Start simple. and then you come back and teach them more. I want to mention Environmental Working Group is a great resource. So if you don't know about that, go online. They've got cosmetic guides. They've got all kinds of sunscreen guides. And I use them because they've got resources that my patients can just go online and get.
Awesome. Donna?
One more thing. Bioenergetic Resources is my company, and so a lot of the education that I'm talking about is being put on the website. Environmental Working Group is great, and the Homotoxicology models there was something else I wanted to say, but it's gone now.
I use a lot of the functional medicine tools that we have in the functional medicine toolkit. So the way that we've designed these is it makes it so easy for the patient. So there's a comprehensive guide taking them through the elimination diet. Initially, that's more of the short-term way of doing detox, establishing a good microbiome, getting rid of those food allergens, and then moving into a longer-term detox food plan. And I think that that's very unique. I have not seen that talked about by other gurus and such. You know, usually it's just an elimination diet. But IFM has gone one step further into personalizing with a longer-term strategy to really get at things, like you said, Jill, genetics. And also looking at, Bob, what you said about the different foods like cruciferous vegetables, focusing and honing in on those foods that are really tailored to detox. So using those food plans. And another thing that makes the IFM toolkit very different is the phytonutrient focus. And I think if there's just one thing that people can remember when they do a detox, is to focus on color. You know, getting the full rainbow spectrum. I know it sounds like a very simplistic message, and it is. You know, I don't think nutrition has to be complicated. So we built out a whole toolkit just around phytonutrients, also for kids. Christy has done a lot with that. It's fabulous. So it's really a nice self-contained system to take a patient through short-term and then long-term.
All right. Unfortunately, we've run out of time. Thank you so much for the panel. Let's have a big round of applause for the panel. Yeah, can we just stay? If you guys want to just say, we've got one more piece and then we're going to finish up. So Deanna and I met Deanna last year speaking at a event called Heal Thy Practice. And Deanna called me one very excited day in January to tell me she had a big idea and she was going to be doing a summit. And literally, we had just done the first functional forum, and I knew that this is what we were going to be doing. Deanna, I want to give you just a couple of minutes because Deanna is innovating in a way that I think could bring this message to a lot more people. It's the same reason why I'm doing the Evolution of Medicine Summit in September. But Deanna, maybe you can just tell us a little bit about your detox summit for all the people at home. If you're a patient, you need to get on this. If you're a doctor, you need to be curating this for your patients. It's a great tool, and I hope we're going to see a Guinness Book of World Records as well. So I'll give you a moment here, Deanna. Here's the clicker to go forward.
And this mic is working.
Yeah.
All right. So thank you, James. He's right. We did have that great meeting together and had this brainstorm, and I thought it's such a nice compliment that you're doing the Evolution of Medicine in September. We've got the Detox Summit in August. So just one summit after the other with really good information. So as I mentioned, I'm doing the Detox Summit in collaboration with the Institute for Functional Medicine. So I'm really excited because really and truly, this is an experiment. How do we take detox out to the masses? How do we do this? And you called it a digital detox. I call it a virtual detox, right? So how do we get everybody going? And there is what Dr. Mark Hyman calls the sociogenomics aspect, right? When we talk about the paternal model versus the maternal or the feminine model, it's much more collaborative. It's co-creating. So together as a community, working with the practitioners, supporting practitioners as they go through with all of this information that they can tap into. Because I really do see the Detox Summit as being as much as primed for practitioners as it is for patients. It's really a two-pronged approach. There are some very sophisticated elements to it from the speakers. You know, Dr. Jeffrey Bland, who starts off the summit. And every day there are 4 speakers that are focusing on some element of detox. Now, one of the things that we heard about today was the transgenerational effects of toxins. So looking at the maternal effects, pregnancy effects. We have a whole day dedicated to 4 speakers just addressing that, which I think is so important to be thinking about the generations to come. And then we also have a whole day dedicated to diagnostics. So many people want to know, what do I measure if I go to the doctor? What tests am I asking for? Are there other functional medicine tests that we have to focus on? We have another day focused on food. So gosh, we've got so many people talking about food in their own ways. Dr. Hyman is talking about food. We've got Dr. Alejandro Younger, who wrote the best-selling book, Clean. He has his own detox. So many people have lots of different opinions about food, so that will be exciting. We have a speaker on cancer, because as we saw that video to start, a lot of these toxins are shuttling through and changing processes that create inflammation. So hearing about cancer, hearing about herbs from Dr. Aviva Ram, who has done a lot with the Institute for Functional Medicine. So it's really, I would say, a whole, I see it as a kaleidoscope. If you look at all the different things that we talk about, it's very diverse. It's not just how do you do a detox, but what is the rationale for a detox? What are the toxins to be concerned about? So to educate people first, and then to inspire them along that process to actually do something about it. And again, the way that I see that this is very different than other detoxes that are out there is if you look at the functional medicine matrix, right there in the heart of the matrix, right in that nucleus, you have mental, emotional, and spiritual. And this detox summit will focus on the aspects of toxic emotions and thoughts, which, again, if we don't approach it up front, it comes out anyway when you actually do a detox. And I see some head nods on that. So beauty and fitness, we also have some discussion about physical activity, which I think is good, lifestyle toxic behaviors, and we do have this phytonutrient focus, which again tracks back to the focus and the differentiation for IFM in terms of the functional nutrition component. So spending days just focused on colors, 1 day per color, and really looking at the psychology and the physiology of what those foods bring in to the body and how they change processes relating to detox. So what's in it for the practitioner? Lots of different things here, as much as it is for the patient. Getting the facts about toxins, and as I mentioned before, the literature on toxicity, toxins, detox, it's always changing. Always. And I have my PubMed alerts set so that I get all those articles and I can just see. I mean, Bob mentioned the article about the broccoli sprouts. That came out just about a month ago. And so, that's why we have the detox module through IFM, to really train practitioners to do this confidently in their practices. Secondly, learn how to recognize toxins and eliminate them. That can be through subjective means. We have Dr. Michael Stone talking about physical diagnosis, looking at hair, skin, nails, and how can you tell if you're toxic without actually even doing a lab test. Discover ways to gain more energy and vitality. The number one reason why people do a detox is to get more energy. So I really like that because it really goes back to the conversation that we were having early on in Dr. Roundtree's presentation about, do we just have to work with the mitochondria? Is it really about energy production, getting those toxins eliminated to help fuel the mitochondria? And that's also a focus on the matrix of the functional medicine matrix. And then also, we really do believe in supporting the community, and so we will have a Facebook page which is private and closed to people that have registered for the Detox Summit. So they will be able to get on, and we have a whole detox team of people that are chiming in with recipes, tools, tips, anything to help people through this process, and also to help practitioners to make them feel secure about the science of detoxification. You know the old adage, right, about how it takes 50 years to see the translation of science into clinical medicine. I hope that with detoxification that we can really shorten that. So I know that James has his link that he'd like to send people to for the Detox Summit, so you'll send that out.
This is my opportunity to share with Deanna. I think this is an amazing work, and I really hope that you hit the... this is an amazing opportunity, and we're promoting it because we feel like we want Deanna to break the Guinness Book of World Records for it, and it's a great starting point. And look, what you said, Deanna, it does take this kind of thing, and that is the name of the Functional Forum. That is the tagline. We're here to accelerate this evolution of medicine. Medicine is going to evolve one way or another, but I think it needs some acceleration, and that's what we're trying to do. So this has been the Functional Forum. Thank you so much for spending time here. If you're in Colorado, if you're watching on the live stream, it's been great to do this in front of all of you. Monday, September the 8th is the next Functional Forum, live from ABC Home and Carpet. It's the beginning of the Evolution of Medicine Summit. We'll see you there. I'm James Maskell, and we'll see you next time. Thanks very much.
Nice to meet you. And here's your pen back.